A young Victorian lady steps through the grand entrance of a townhouse, her silk gloves trembling with excitement. The year is 1875, and she's arrived at the most anticipated Halloween party of the season. She moves through the house, drawn by different sounds from each room. From the first is loud laughter and splashing. Through the crack of the door, she sees men and women with flushed faces, their hair completely disheveled. Proper Victorian composure has vanished entirely. Welcome to Quill & Compass's Halloween party. Let's continue to quietly follow behind our party guest. The second room she comes to offers a stark contrast to the first. Dim, hushed, almost sacred. Women sit motionless in flickering candlelight, staring intently into glass mirrors. The last room showcases the evening's centerpiece, a magnificent display of carved turnip lanterns grinning grotesquely from every surface. Their hollow eyes cast dancing shadows. At the room's center sits a mysterious cake. Which room would you choose to investigate first? In Victorian times, these weren't innocent party games. Moral authorities believed they were scandalous rituals, and horrified religious leaders believed they challenged everything proper society held dear about courtship, propriety, and a woman's place.
The ancient roots from spirits to scandals.
Before we get into the games and rituals themselves, we should trace their origins back through centuries of forbidden tradition. It all began with Samhain, the ancient Celtic festival, marking winter's arrival. The Celts believed this was the one night when the veil between our world and the spirit realm grew paper thin, allowing the dead to return and supernatural forces to roam freely among the living. The Romans added their own twist when they conquered Britain. Their goddess Pomona, associated with fruit and trees, brought apple-based divination rituals that would later evolve into those scandalous party games. The apple became a symbol of romantic prophecy, its seeds and flesh hiding secrets about love and marriage. When Christianity spread across Britain, church leaders tried desperately to sanitize these pagan customs. They established All Hallows' Eve, All Saints' Day, and All Souls' Day, hoping to replace supernatural mischief with proper religious observance. But the old ways proved remarkably stubborn. Medieval souling traditions saw poor folk wandering door to door, offering prayers for the dead in exchange for soul cakes. This practice gradually transformed, becoming less about spiritual charity and more about social mixing between classes. By the Victorian era, these ancient harvest festivals had merged completely with supernatural beliefs, creating perfect conditions for romantic mischief. The timing was crucial. Harvest season meant abundant food for elaborate parties, whilst the supernatural associations provided cover for behavior that would seem far more scandalous at another time of year. What emerged was a night when proper young ladies could engage in fortune-telling, when unmarried men and women could interact intimately, and when the rigid social rules governing courtship could be temporarily suspended under the guise of harmless tradition.
Bobbing for more than apples. The marriage market in motion.
What appeared to be innocent apple bobbing was actually Victorian Britain's most scandalous matchmaking ritual, disguised as harmless fun. The rules seemed straightforward enough. Fill a large basin with water, float several apples on the surface, and let guests attempt to catch them using only their teeth. The first person to successfully bite an apple would be the next to marry, or so the tradition claimed. But beneath this simple game lay a complex web of courtship dynamics that horrified moral authorities. Young men and women competed together in mixed company, their faces inches apart as they plunged toward the same floating targets. Proper Victorian distance between the sexes evaporated entirely. Publications, including Godey's Ladies' Book, would certainly have described the unseemly displays with disapproval. The idea that young ladies emerged from the apple basin with their hair hanging loose, their faces glistening with water, and their composure entirely abandoned, was shocking. Gentlemen would eagerly stand close by, offering handkerchiefs and assistance with obvious pleasure. The physical intimacy concerns were genuine. In an era when unmarried couples couldn't even touch hands without chaperones present, apple bobbing created moments of startling closeness. Participants would collide underwater, surface gasping and laughing, their carefully constructed social barriers dissolved by the game's chaotic nature. Regional variations added extra scandal. In Yorkshire, the game included apple snap, where apples hung from strings at mouth height, requiring couples to work together, one person holding the string whilst their partner attempted to bite the fruit. Wholly inappropriate. Scottish households played dooking for apples with additional fortune-telling elements. Each apple bore a different symbol carved into its skin. Hearts for love, coins for wealth, crosses for religious devotion. The symbol on your successfully caught apple predicted your future, adding supernatural significance to the romantic competition. Wealthy families used crystal bowls filled with imported apples and turned apple bobbing into elaborate theatrical productions. Hosts would arrange the game as the evening's climax, with servants standing by with heated towels and fresh clothing. Middle-class families struck careful balances between propriety and indulgence. They'd allow the games but implement strict rules, separate sessions for men and women, or carefully supervised mixed groups with married couples acting as chaperones. The working class made do with wooden tubs and whatever fruit they could afford. Their celebrations were more honest about the game's matchmaking purpose. Young factory workers and servants would gather in pub back rooms or kitchen courtyards, using apple bobbing as genuine courtship opportunities. Without elaborate social protocols to navigate, their games were often more successful at creating actual romantic connections. Enterprising hosts would deliberately manipulate the game to facilitate specific matches. They'd wait certain apples to float in particular areas, or whisper hints about which gentleman might be standing nearby. Some hostesses became notorious for their annual Halloween parties, where their success in pairing off young people was legendary. This calculated use of traditional games drew scathing criticism from contemporary media and highly respected periodicals, which condemned how respectable homes were transforming innocent harvest games into thinly veiled matrimonial marketplaces. Writers for these publications particularly objected that young ladies were effectively encouraged to engage in a state of dishevelment and disorder. But despite the moral outrage, the popularity of these Halloween rituals persisted due to their effectiveness at blossoming formal courtships. The psychological impact was profound. For Victorian women especially, successfully catching an apple represented a rare moment of public achievement, a prediction of romantic success in their own hands rather than their parents' arrangements. Medical professionals worried about the health implications, warning that the sudden immersion and excitement could cause nervous disorders in susceptible young ladies, whilst others blamed apple bobbing for everything from consumption to hysteria.
The mirror game, scrying and strange faces.
Of all the Victorian Halloween rituals, few caused more moral outrage than mirror divination. The mechanics were deceptively simple. Young women would gather in darkened rooms, each maiden sitting before a mirror in near complete darkness, holding a single candle steady beside her face. She'd stare into the glass without blinking and hoped to conjure the face of her future husband in the reflection. But the Victorian press saw something far more sinister. The Morning Chronicle described these sessions as generating improper excitement among impressionable young women. Religious authorities condemned the practice outright. People such as Reverend Dr. Cumming wrote scathingly about young ladies dabbling with dark forces better left undisturbed, whilst the Church Times warned that mirror scrying opened dangerous doorways to influences no Christian soul should court. The scandal wasn't just about supernatural dabbling, it was about social control. These mirror games represented unmarried women taking their romantic fate into their own hands, bypassing parents, chaperones, and proper courtship protocols entirely. Contemporary accounts describe the psychological effects in vivid detail, acknowledging that staring intensely into a mirror in low light can induce apparitions and visual hallucinations. This phenomenon, often called the strange face in the mirror illusion, can cause people to see distortions, faces, or even monsters. Of course, these are generally understood to be perceptual and dissociative effects, not genuine prophecy. Such successes kept the tradition thriving despite moral opposition. Women whispered about accurate predictions, sharing stories that spread like wildfire through social circles. Class distinctions shaped how mirror scrying was performed. Wealthy families used ornate silver mirrors in properly appointed rooms, whilst working-class women made do with small hand mirrors and tallow candles in cramped quarters. But the ritual's essential elements remained constant across social boundaries. The upper classes added theatrical flourishes, silk curtains, imported candles, even hired musicians to create appropriate atmosphere. Working-class women approached mirror divination with practical desperation. For them, marriage prospects were often limited by economic circumstances, making any glimpse of romantic hope precious. They'd pool resources to buy decent candles and share mirrors, turning individual divination into communal experiences. Victorian society offered women few choices about their futures, making these glimpses of potential romance intoxicating. The mirror became a symbol of female agency in an age when such agency was severely restricted. Medical professionals worried. Doctors like Dr. Henry Maudsley warned that prolonged staring could cause nervous exhaustion and hysteria, and blamed mirror games for everything from fainting spells to brain fever. But the games persisted because they offered young women a tantalizing taste of romantic self-determination, however illusory it might have been.
The Cake of Fate, Barmbrack, and the Fortune-Telling Feast.
The evening's most dramatic moment came when the hostess unveiled the Barmbrack cake, a seemingly innocent fruitcake that held the power to predict death itself. This traditional Irish cake had crossed the sea to Victorian Britain, bringing with it centuries of supernatural baggage. Baked into the dense, fruit-studded loaf were hidden objects, each carrying profound significance for whoever discovered them in their slice. The symbols were deceptively simple, but carried enormous weight. A ring meant marriage within the year, the most coveted prize for unmarried guests. A coin promised wealth and prosperity. A piece of cloth, however, foretold poverty or bad luck. Most ominously, some cakes contained a pea or bean, traditionally signifying death or serious misfortune. The ritual itself was pure theater. Guests would gather around the cake as the hostess cut careful slices. Each person would examine their portion with trembling fingers, searching through the dense fruit and flour for their fate. The discovery of the death token caused such distress that sometimes the unfortunate young woman who found it would even faint. But of course, Victorian social manipulation was lurking in the shadows. Savvy hostesses learned to control the game's outcomes. She would carefully place the ring near the slice intended for a particular young lady she wished to see married. The church didn't like this one either. The moral panic was immediate and fierce. The practice was condemned as tempting providence through unholy divination. Meanwhile, wealthy families commissioned elaborate cakes from fashionable bakers with silver rings and gold coins as hidden prizes. The cake itself would be rich with imported fruits, expensive spices, and fine brandy. Middle-class households struck their usual balance, baking simpler versions at home but maintaining the essential elements. They'd use brass rings instead of silver, copper pennies instead of gold coins, but the dramatic tension remained identical. Working-class families adapted the tradition to their means, sometimes using simple bread loaves with whatever small objects they could spare, buttons, pebbles, or scraps of different colored cloth. The symbolism remained powerful, regardless of the material's value. Here was a tradition that combined gluttony, gambling, and fortune-telling into one scandalous package, all disguised as innocent Halloween party entertainment.
Turnip terrors, the grotesque grin of Jack-o'-lantern.
Whilst guests divined their futures, the walls themselves seemed to leer at their activities. These weren't the cartoonish, pretend scary pumpkin faces we're familiar with today. Victorian jack-o'-lanterns were carved from turnips, swedes, and mangel wurzels, their naturally gnarled surfaces lending themselves to truly terrifying expressions. The legend behind them was equally dark. Stingy Jack was an Irish drunkard, so cunning he managed to trick the devil himself multiple times. In the most famous tale, Jack convinced Satan to transform into a coin to pay a pub tab, then trapped him by placing the coin next to a silver cross. After several such deceptions, the devil agreed never to claim Jack's soul. So when Jack died, he discovered the fatal flaw in his cleverness. Heaven rejected him for his sinful life, whilst hell was barred to him by the devil's promise. Doomed to wander the earth forever, Jack was given a burning coal to light his way, which he placed inside a hollowed turnip, creating the first jack-o'-lantern. Victorian turnip carving was serious folk art. The faces were deliberately monstrous, featuring deep-set eyes glowering from hollow sockets and jagged teeth grimacing in permanent sneers. These grotesque creations were common enough to warrant organized contests, with competitions offering prizes for the best. Class distinctions appeared even in turnip carving. Working-class families approached the task with practical desperation. These lanterns served genuine protective purposes, warding off evil spirits, including Jack himself. Their carvings were rough but powerful, emphasizing function over artistry. Middle-class households treated turnip carving as decorative craft, creating more elaborate designs with careful attention to symmetry and detail. They'd display multiple lanterns throughout their homes, turning Halloween into an exhibition of artistic skill. Upper-class families hired servants to carve their turnips, sometimes commissioning dozens of lanterns to line every windowsill and doorway, their ghoulish grins creating an otherworldly atmosphere and perfect Halloween party setting. The spiritual purpose remained constant across all social levels. These lanterns weren't mere decorations, they were protective talismans against supernatural threats. Regional variations added local flavor to the tradition. Scottish families carved tumshees, whilst Welsh households preferred swedes. Northern English communities sometimes used mangel wurzels, their massive size allowing for particularly elaborate facial features. Will you be carving a pumpkin or a Mangel Wurzel for Halloween this year?
The moral backlash, when fun became forbidden.
By the 1880s, religious authorities had seen enough. The combination of supernatural dabbling, romantic impropriety, and social chaos that defined Victorian Halloween parties triggered a massive backlash that would forever change these ancient traditions. Leading the charge was the Methodist Church, whose ministers preached fiery sermons. Newspaper editorials joined the crusade with increasing frequency. Provincial papers reported local scandals involving Halloween parties gone wrong. Schools banned Halloween celebrations entirely. Churches organized alternative harvest home festivities that emphasized Christian gratitude over supernatural speculation. Parents were supervising party games more strictly. By the 1890s, the wildest excesses of Victorian Halloween had been largely tamed. The mirror games disappeared first, condemned as genuinely dangerous. Apple bobbing survived, but became segregated by gender. The barmbrack tradition faded as hostesses grew nervous about predicting death. The lanterns proved most resilient, eventually evolving into carved pumpkins. But even they lost their protective spiritual significance. What had once been a night of genuine rebellion against Victorian constraints became increasingly domesticated, eventually transforming into the child-centered holiday we recognize today.
The legacy of Victorian Halloween rebellion.
These scandalous games revealed deeper tensions simmering beneath Victorian society's polished surface. At their heart, they represented rebellion against rigid social constraints that governed every aspect of daily life, particularly for women. The mirror divination, apple bobbing, and fortune-telling cakes weren't just party entertainment. They were acts of quiet defiance. Young women claimed agency over their romantic destinies. Unmarried couples found excuses for intimate contact. Ancient pagan wisdom challenged Christian authority. In our age of computer games and horror movies, we sometimes forget what Victorian authorities understood. These games can create real connections, spark actual romances, and give participants fleeting tastes of personal freedom. Today's sanitized Halloween bears little resemblance to these wild Victorian nights of supernatural speculation and romantic rebellion. We've traded genuine mystery for manufactured scares and authentic community rituals for commercial costume parties. But perhaps that's exactly what those long-dead party guests would have wanted. Their scandalous secrets of wild Halloween parties safely buried beneath centuries of respectability. Like, subscribe, and join us next time for more dark and mysterious history.